Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be talking about something that most likely won't be censored, but maybe it will because I got a de-googled phone. Let me just clear my... There we go. This is what it looks like. It's a Pixel 4a. I got an older version. I went to braxme.com to get it. It only took 1 week. It came in the mail. I only spent a decent amount of money on it, but in terms of cell phones, it's pretty cheap, like $600 bucks. That's so much money for a stupid phone. It's basically fully de-googled. I think you shouldn't use your home's Wi-Fi. I have both of my phones. So I have the old phone, which I just have like the spy apps are on it, and I only pick up with using Wi-Fi. I know they can still like track you with that. But just check out Rob Braxman. He's got a full YouTube. He also has his uncensored content is on Odyssey. All different kinds of apps on here. This app called New Pipe, I think it's called. It looks like YouTube, but it's not. So you can watch all your YouTube stuff. You can watch me, yay, on this app, but there's no tracking. It doesn't track.
The moment you log in with a Google ID or an Apple ID, your phone is being tracked with your personal identifier. But none of this exists on a de-Googled phone. One of the things implemented in Google Android phones was contact tracing. This is one of those failed app ideas, since I don't think any of you care about installing contact tracing apps on your phone or Android. Maybe most people had enough sense about privacy. However, the internal code for this contact tracing is Bluetooth BLE, and this is enabled as part of the Google Apps code, whether or not you installed a contact tracing app. This is really bad, since for contact tracing purposes, both Google and Apple phones started enabling this ability to track other phones nearby, and it would start by having phones emit a beacon that would be the identifier, which can be heard by nearby phones. I'm happy to say that this code does not exist, as far as I'm aware, on Android open source, so I believe the Google phones are not emitting this on-the-air identifier using Bluetooth that can capture your identity. When Google apps are running on a phone, Google monitors the activity on the phone. This particular behavior does not exist on a de-Googled phone. Most of this telemetry is needed to provide notifications. So if no special provision was made, de-Googled phones would have no notifications. But there's a way around that, and de-Googled phones are installed with a spoofer for notifications and Google services. In order to install apps on de-Googled phones, typically the option that provides the best security is a store called F-Droid, and this is often pre-installed. This is an open source repository maintained by the fdroid.org project, and they curate apps and require that all apps be submitted with source code. So this is the first alternative store on a de-Googled phone. For example, instead of Google Maps, you can find OpenStreetMaps or Osmand as your maps provider.
So once I figure out how to use the Osmand app, which apparently it works, once I figure out how to use it, maybe I'll let you guys know how to use it.
Oh my god, I read TikTok's terms of service. I'm gonna read you this because this is so crazy.
Is it good or bad?
Bad.
So what you're saying, it's a bad place to be?
Listen to this. This is from TikTok's privacy policy.
All right.
It said, we collect certain information about the device you use to access the platform, such as your IP address, user region. This is really crazy. User agent, mobile carrier, time zone settings, identifiers for advertising purpose, model of your device, the device system, network type, device IDs, your screen resolution and operating system, app and file names and types. So all your apps and all your file names, all the things you have filed away on your phone,
Really?
they have access to that. File names and types, keystroke patterns or rhythms. So they're monitoring your keystrokes, which means they know everything you type.
Wow.
Battery state, audio settings and connected audio devices where you log in from multiple devices.
Oh.
We will be able to use your profile information to identify your activity across devices. We may also associate you with information collected from devices other than those you use to log into the platform, meaning they can use other computers that you're not even using to log into TikTok. They can suck the data off that. That's what you're agreeing to when you download and start using TikTok. That's wild.
It's insane. My question would be, do you think they did that? They created TikTok just on purpose to have all that?
100%. Just sucked into it. And all the while, it's monitoring your keystrokes, your audio settings. But by audio settings, that means it has access to your microphone. That means it's listening to you right.
Just tell me how it
right
ends,
now.
man.
It ends with China having all of your data. But if you see what's going on over there with the digital currency, what they have is the ability to tell you can't buy gas. Like, hey, Theo, we don't like the way you're living your life, so you're not going to be able to buy a plane ticket. What any military exercise they're doing when they're putting tanks in front of a bank is intimidation at the very least.
Do you think the people there even know what freedom is anymore? Or you think they're just so brainwashed?
They've never had freedom.
Know what freedom is anymore? You think they're just so brainwashed?
I think there's already a VPN put into this device. Micro G is an app.
And notifications are passed through a third party for anonymization. This third party app is called Micro G, or the Micro G project. And this is one of the necessary modules to a Google phone for it to work with popular apps. There are a lot of apps on F-Droid, but they won't be the popular ones you know well. Whether we like it or not, the average consumer, and even I, want to install apps that are not on F-Droid. My own app Brax.me is on Google Play and not on F-Droid, and important apps like Signal are not on F-Droid either. The solution is a Google Play spoofer called Aurora Store.
Permission settings. Permission missing. Oh yeah, Google device registration is enabled. I don't know if that's good. I might have to go through this again. So we have the Aurora Store, which is basically a private version of the App Store.
In the Google phones that we sell, we pre-install the Aurora Store. The Aurora Store has access to all the titles in Google Play and the latest versions to the phone. In other words, you're anonymous on Google Play. So basically, most apps can be found and can install. There's another source of apps, and it's a website called apkpure.com. From here, you can not only download all Android apps, you can even download older versions, which may sometimes be needed for compatibility. Google Apps will not run. There are exceptions to this, but I will discuss it later. So to make it clear, a Google phone has no Google Apps. This is sometimes hard for the average consumer to grasp, but if you want privacy, the first place to start is to control your use of apps. Use apps on your own terms and not have it foisted on you. Some people cannot handle this. Some of you are so dependent on Gmail, Google Docs, Google Drive, YouTube, Google Photos, Google Maps that you cannot function and think there are no alternatives. There are alternatives, but you have to change mindset if you're going to be ready for this. Alternatives imply some inconvenience. The truth of the matter is, I use a Google phone daily. I have no Google apps on the phone, not even YouTube. So no Gmail, no Google Maps, no Google Drive or Google Docs, Google Photos, YouTube. I would tell you anyway that using these products will have a big negative effect on your privacy, so you need to learn to stay away from them. But the reality is that for the most part, the phone is completely functional for even a tech guy like me. I don't find too many limitations, given some lines in the sand that every privacy-conscious person should draw anyway. Just know that aside from Google Apps, 90% of apps you are familiar with will work fine. In the end, this is the major showstopper with most people. If they can't get their favorite apps to run, then they will flatly say no to a Google phone. First, I will start out with saying that certain apps really should not be used on a Google phone, or you are defeating the purpose. Google apps, YouTube apps, Gmail apps, and Meta properties, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. These will wipe out the privacy on the phone. The Meta apps will run, but if you're going to use these, then you are not ready for a Google phone. So don't bother. There are alternate ways of running these platforms, including the Google one, and that is to use the browser. In my company's case, we pre-installed DuckDuckGo as the browser. What I found is that most apps that do not work on a Google phone will run fine when using the browser. So there's no dead end necessarily, just a little inconvenience. Now, something unique with Google Apps. 2 Google apps will work fine on a Google phone because they do not use Google services or Firebase. Waze will run, although it is owned by Google.
Full disclosure, the only problem with this phone is that not super big on EMFs and radiation and all that nonsense. So when I talk on the phone, I usually use my speakerphone. But this particular version of the phone, the Pixel 4a, has issues with the speaker. So I can hear you, but you can't hear me. Somehow it disables the microphone from picking up your voice. So I can't really use the speaker. I'd have to use headphones. And it still has the jack the jack is right here. It still has a jack, so I wouldn't recommend getting this particular model. I would get the other. I would actually get the bigger, the Pixel 4a XL. It's actually it's smaller than my old phone, but it's nice and slim and slender. So if you're not like me and you don't ever talk on the speakerphone, that probably won't be an issue for you, but everything else works. It's pretty cool. The Waze is still on there. So I'm like, I've used Waze because I used to use Google Maps all the time, and I'm basically screwed myself out of the old school ways. Like, I remember back in the day when I had to go drive somewhere, I would literally pull out a map, get your directions from your friends. They tell you what exit to turn off, turn left, turn right. Or you pull out a map and then you double check. Or I remember back in the day, I would memorize, this is how old I am, I would actually memorize how to get to places that I didn't have to use Google Maps. I also remember having a Garmin, and that was really good, and they used satellite technology so you can get around. And Rob Braxman also recommends do not ever get an iPhone. So if you want to know more about why not to get an iPhone, I would watch his stuff on that. And then I have Orbot on here, which is connected to the Tor network. And Orbot wants to set up a VPN connection that allows it to monitor network traffic, only except if you trust the source. Well, I trust nobody and nothing, so I'm not gonna do that. But yeah, it's a pretty cool phone. They even have like forecasts. It's called Forecasty. I'm not gonna put any apps on here. I'm just gonna use my old phone for like WhatsApp and stuff. So because that phone's already registered, and it's set up with my Wi-Fi, so it's already tracking me through that. So I can still use WhatsApp, but I'm just gonna use my old phone. And when I travel around, I use this one because this is the one that the network is tapped into. Am I more secure and more private? Well, they can't catch my data as much because I can only use that other phone with the Wi-Fi. Whether or not that's recommended, I don't know. I'd have to talk to Edward Snowden to double check if I'm doing anything right or I'm just getting spied on all levels. And I haven't transferred any of my contacts. Actually, I don't want to transfer any of my contacts because I think that's another like way they worm in. I don't want any worming. I want to stay as private as possible and have Skynet from the Terminator have as little of my data as I possibly can. I'm certainly not an expert, but I got my de-Googled phone, and I'm very excited about it, and I'm happy that I did it. You got to fight the power every chance you get, and these big tech companies don't have your best interest in mind. Hopefully you know that. This is not news, but I'm just here to reiterate. They do not have your best interest in mind. You are a tool and a means to an end, and what end that is, I'm not sure, but if I don't know these people personally, I don't like it and I don't trust it. And that's just how I roll. Check out my website, conversationpiece.life. Fight the power, fight the tyranny. Go check out my latest articles. I wrote a pretty interesting article recently about a certain public figure that's related to Brandon. We'll call him Brandon. And you can probably figure that out if you haven't already heard about the latest scandal and his iPhone. Another reason why not to have an iPhone, you kind of it can be hacked. The iCloud system, yeah, it can be hacked. I mean, I'm sure this can be hacked too. I hope you guys all have a peaceful rest of your week. Health and happiness, love and light, and all the cheesy stuff. I should probably have a catchphrase, but I don't. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a great day. Stay blessed. Thank you for watching. Comment below. Don't forget, you can, if you want, subscribe, like, or hit the bell. Hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. I don't know if I just started this channel, so I don't know if it's shadow banned yet, but I'm trying not to get to that level. It's a free country, so you can do whatever you want. It's a free country. I mean, it's only free if you make it free. So we're trying to get free. Without freedom, you can't have anything. Certainly can't have rights. Take care.